Okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was very fortunate that I was able to start learning from lamas in the 70s, and over since that time have had the chance to study with many wonderful teachers, most of whom have passed away. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is still with us, and a few other of my teachers are still alive. But yeah, many have passed away. And I feel kind of responsible to share what I learned from them, the precious teachings of the Buddha, and how to work with our mind, how to work with our emotions, and so on. So these teachings are just wonderful and precious. I'm really happy to have the chance to share them with others who are interested. So let's start with just a short time of sitting quietly to settle ourselves down and generate a positive motivation for being here. So you've probably had a busy day, doing things, going here and there, working, talking to people, and so on. So it's good to try to let all the thoughts that we have about what we did today or any other time in the past, to let those kind of settle down. So, so start by making yourselves comfortable. It's good when we meditate to sit with your back straight. Try to straighten your back. But that doesn't mean being tight or tense. At the same time, we need to have a relaxed way of sitting. If you do notice any tightness or tension anywhere in your body, let it go. You can imagine it melting, becoming like liquid and flowing out of you and down into the earth below, disappearing into the earth. And then to relax the mind, it's helpful to pay attention to the breathing, because our breath is happening in the present, the here and now. It's not somewhere else or at some other time. It's right here, right now. So when we pay attention to our breath coming in and going out, it helps our mind to be settled in the here and now, not thinking about the past or future or some other place. So just for a few minutes, do that. Be aware of your breathing, coming in, going out. So everything we do brings results, consequences, both for ourselves and for others. Naturally, we want good results. We want good things to happen, not bad things. And so one of the main factors that determines what kind of results come from our actions is the motivation we have for doing what we do. So our teachers, the Tibetan Lamas, really emphasize the importance of motivation, having a good motivation for the things that we do. And this is especially true when it comes to Dharma, spiritual practice, spiritual teachings. It's really important to make sure that our motivation for learning and practicing is a good one, a positive one. And the very best possible motivation is what's called bodhicitta. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. It's the wish to become a Buddha, to become fully enlightened in order to help all other beings. So it's a very compassionate, loving, caring motivation. So if you're familiar with that idea, with bodhicitta, and you're comfortable with it, and you feel you can have that as your motivation for being here tonight, then you can bring that into your mind. But I'm sure some of you may be new to Buddhism and to this idea of bodhicitta. So you may not be sure if that's really what you want to do, if you really want to become a Buddha to help all beings. That's fine. It usually takes a while to get familiar with that idea and comfortable with it. But so if you're not yet comfortable with bodhicitta, you probably are comfortable with caring about others and wanting to help others. That's just a natural feeling that everybody has. And so you could bring that into your mind. You could think, yeah, I want to help others as much as I can. I want to help the world. I want to bring good energy out there into the people I interact with, my family, my friends, people I work with, my neighbors, and even, the world. So if you can feel that way, that you want to bring good energy, send good energy out to others, then you could think that you're here tonight in order to learn how to do that, how to have more good energy, positive energy in yourself so that you have that positive energy to give to others. So if you're comfortable with that motivation, you could bring that into your mind. So we'll do some more meditation a little later, but I wanted to talk first. I don't know if you are all experienced meditators, or some of you may be new and unfamiliar, so I wanted to share what I've learned about meditation in this tradition, the Tibetan tradition. So it said that the Tibetan word for meditation has the meaning of familiarize, to get familiar with. So the idea of practicing meditation is making our minds familiar with positive mental states, good thoughts, good feelings, getting kind of habituated, familiar with those so that they come more frequently, more often. Because the way that our mind works is, or one way that it works, is that whatever we're most familiar with is what's going to come up again and again and again. For example, if someone is very familiar with anger, they get angry every day, many times every day, and they've been doing that for many, many, many years, maybe since they were a kid. So then they're familiar with anger, and anger is going to come up again and again and again, just like that. And but on the other hand, a person who's more familiar with kindness, for example, being kind and caring, helpful to others. So if that's something they have been doing, thinking about, and also acting out many, many times in their life, then that's something they're very familiar with, and it will come up just easily, naturally. Yeah, just like that. They see someone who's in need, and they immediately respond with kindness and, oh, what can I do to help you? So Buddha wanted us to be happy and to not suffer, to be free of suffering. And he knew that, certain states of mind make us suffer, like anger. Okay, anger is a state of mind, of feeling and experience that's really unpleasant, really painful when it's happening, when you're in that state of mind, feeling angry. And it can also make other people suffer too, because if you show your anger, you act out your anger to others, then they can be hurt, upset, uncomfortable. So it's kind of easy to see that that particular state of mind, anger, leads to suffering, to problems. And on the other hand, an attitude like kindness, caring, love and kindness, compassion, those kind of attitudes where you see people in need, you want to help them, you do what you can to help them. So that's like a really beautiful state of mind. We feel good when we're feeling that way and acting that way. And it also makes other people feel good. They like that kind of treatment. They like being cared for. And so the Buddha had a really good understanding of the mind and the different states of mind, different things that can happen in a mind. And he could see from his own experience which ones were more causing suffering, causing more unhappiness and suffering and problems, and which ones were more conducive for happiness and peace and so on. And he worked on his own mind and managed to get rid of all the negative ones like anger and greed and so on. He just chased them out of his mind, freed his mind from them. And then the good states of mind, the ones that lead to happiness, he cultivated those. He made himself really, really familiar with those, and until to the point where they were like constant, always there, and really fully developed. And so he found this, doing this, working on his mind, transforming his mind in that way, brought peace, incredible peace and happiness and enlightenment, the state of enlightenment. And so, and then he realized, oh, this is something everybody can do. And wouldn't it be great if people could do it? Because then they'd stop suffering and stop making other people suffer. And they'd have a lot more happiness and peace and share that with others. So he spent the remaining years of his life after he attained enlightenment just sharing what he had learned with others. So that's where these teachings come from, the teachings of Buddhism. And they've lasted, they've survived for about 2,600 years, which we're really grateful for. They're still very much alive, very much studied and practiced and shared with others. So that's kind of the essence of Buddhism. I've heard the Dalai Lama say that. He said the essence of Buddhism is working on our mind to bring about a transformation of our mind such that we decrease and eventually eliminate all the aspects of the mind that are painful, that make us unhappy, and also make suffering for others. To get rid of those. We can't do it like that all at once, unfortunately. It takes time. But gradually over time, we can reduce them and eventually get rid of them. And then the other side is cultivating those positive states of mind, like love and compassion and patience and wisdom. So those are aspects of the mind that bring peace and happiness. So working on developing those and increasing those and perfecting those. So yeah, that's the essence of Buddhism. That's what Buddhism is all about. And I was very happy when I heard the Dalai Lama say that because, Buddhism is very complex, especially Tibetan Buddhism. There's so many different images, different Buddhas, different deities, different practices that we do, different mantras that we say, and so on. It can be quite complex. You can sometimes feel overwhelmed by it all. But just to understand that the purpose of all of those things is that. That's like Buddhism in a nutshell, is working on the mind to bring about a positive transformation of the mind and bring happiness and peace to ourselves and others. And that's what all these images and teachings and practices are really for. So that's the meaning of meditation. It's to familiarize ourselves, get used to positive states of mind like compassion and love and concentration, learning how to keep our mind focused on one thing so that it's not just crazy and wild and all over the place. And contentment, learning to be content with what we have instead of constantly wanting more and better and chasing after things, but learning to have, contented state of mind with the basic things, a simple life. So those are some of the positive states of mind that we try to cultivate, and meditation is the way to do that, a method for doing that. And there's lots of different kinds of meditation. It can be bewildering when you look at all the different kinds of meditation. But one practice that is usually taught in the beginning, but it's not just a beginner's practice. It's something you can do all along. And in fact, it can lead all the way to enlightenment, is mindfulness of breathing. And I really like this practice. My mind is kind of very busy and it's hard to calm it down. But I find that meditation on the breath is very helpful for calming down the body and the mind. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with that practice, but it's something we need to do again and again and again. And so I thought to lead a meditation on that now, and then share some more information about it, how to practice further. So it's important, as I mentioned earlier, to have a good posture when meditating. Traditionally in Asia, Tibet and India and so on, people sit cross-legged, even the full lotus posture, but many people have difficulty with that. So it's completely okay to sit in a chair. But if you do sit in a chair, it's important to have your back straight. And so often chairs have a tilted back. So if you're leaning back against the back of the chair, then your back might not be very straight. It might be kind of leaning like that. So if that's the case, when you're meditating, it's better not to lean against the back of the chair, unless it's a straight back, but rather just sit up straight. have your back straight. Now, I know some people may have back problems and difficulty keeping your back straight. So if that is the case, then just, adjust the posture to whatever works for you. But keeping the back straight helps to keep our mind more clear and focused and not sleepy or dull or, yeah. And at the same time, it's important to have your shoulders relaxed, not tight, tense like this, but let them drop, let them be relaxed. Have both feet flat on the floor. And you can have your hands resting in your lap. The usual position in the Tibetan tradition is like this, with the right hand on top of the left hand and the two thumbs touching. But if you've learned another way of holding your hands, like just resting on your knees or your thighs, that's completely okay as well. Don't press your arms against your sides, but leave some space. That's said to help keep your body cool, because if we press our arms against our side, then heat can build up. And if our body gets too warm, that can lead to sleepiness. We don't want to fall asleep in meditation. We want to stay awake. So having your arms just a little bit away from your sides helps keep your body cool and your mind awake. And the position of the head, it's recommended to not have it too high, like lifted up too high, nor too low, like your chin and your chest, but just slightly tilted downwards. That will help to have the most conducive state of mind. Have your mouth closed and your jaw relaxed, not tense or tight. And have your tongue, the tip of your tongue, touching the roof of your mouth behind your upper teeth. And that is to prevent saliva from forming and then having to swallow. So that can be helpful if you do get into a state of concentration. You don't want to have to swallow too much. And then for the eyes, it's recommended that we don't completely close our eyes all the way, because that can lead to sleepiness. We do want to stay awake and alert during meditation. So it's recommended to have the eyes left open just a little bit, just enough so that we have light coming into our eyes, and that can help us stay awake. And then have your gaze directed downwards onto the floor in front of you or whatever's in front of you, and not be looking around, because then that can be distracting. So those are the points, the recommended posture, what is recommended, but each person needs to find what works best for them. So you might need to make some adjustments according to your physical experiences, any problems you may have with your body. It is important to be comfortable and not in a position that's painful or uncomfortable. So then the main practice in this mindfulness of breathing is to be aware of the breath coming in and going out. And there's different ways advised for doing that. Some recommend being aware of the abdomen. So there's a movement of the abdomen in and out with each breath. So you might want to do that. Another way that's often taught is to pay attention to the sensations in your nostrils. So around the opening of the nostrils or the upper lip. So when the breath is going in and out of your nostrils, you can feel some very subtle sensations at those places. So So that's another place you can focus. And that's said to be preferable if you want to develop concentration, if you wish to train your mind in calm abiding, shamatha, concentration. So that's a good place. But yeah, each person can find their own way, whatever works best for them. So the important thing is to be aware of each breath as it's coming in and going out. So really keep your mind focused on the breath. And anytime the mind wanders elsewhere, if it starts thinking about something else or paying attention to sound that you hear or something else going on in your body, memories that come up, anything that isn't the breath, anything other than the breath, is to be put aside and not paid attention to. So we need to keep our mind focused on the breath coming in and going out, but at the same time be on the lookout for distractions, the mind getting distracted elsewhere. And if we do notice that happening, then just let go of that other object, whatever it is, and return your attention to the breath. And one thing that can help to keep focused on the breath is counting the breaths. And there's different ways of doing that. If you've already learned one way, you can do that. But otherwise, one way I've learned is you say to yourself, breathing in, breathing out 1, breathing in, breathing out 2, and so on, and count up to 10. If you're really new to meditation, then just count up to 5. But if you have some experience, you can count up to 10. And then when you do reach 10 or 5, then go back to 1. Start again at 1. So that can give your mind a little bit more impetus to stay focused on the breath. But it's completely optional. You don't have to do the counting. If you're able to keep your mind on your breathing without counting, that's okay too. So let's do that for about 10 minutes. I'll ring the bell and we can see if there's any questions you have. So the technique we just did is basically kind of simple. Just breathe and watch your breathing, count your breathing. But when we try to do it, it's not so simple, is it? Yeah, it's very hard to keep the mind focused. And even in the scriptures from India and Tibet that go back hundreds of years, they say that when we try to focus our mind, try to concentrate our mind, it's very difficult. Mind doesn't want to stay on one object and wanders here and there. And some people even have the impression that their mind gets more busy when they try to meditate than at other times. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but sometimes, so even in ancient India and Tibet, people had that experience. And I think it's even more the case nowadays. There's so many, I mean, our lifestyle and all the technology and phones and so on. So it's, I think, even more difficult nowadays to keep the mind focused on just one thing because the mind just doesn't have that experience. It's not used to doing that. It's used to running here and there and looking at many different things. And so then I think it's even more difficult nowadays than it was in the past. But anyway, the authors of texts on meditation say that, yeah, if you think that your mind gets more busy when you try to meditate, it's not true. It isn't like that. Our mind is always busy, and we just don't notice it until we sit down and try to concentrate, and then we see how crazy our mind is. So if, in case anyone has had that impression, if you think, oh, my mind is normally not so bad, but when I try to meditate, oh my God, it just gets crazy. So it's not true. You're just noticing the craziness that's always there. But because we're paying attention to things outside of ourselves and not so much inside, then we don't notice it. But don't be discouraged. That's important to look out for. Yeah, people can sometimes get discouraged and even kind of self-critical and feel like, oh, I'm hopeless, I'm a failure, I can't do this. Does anyone ever have that kind of thought? Yeah. Yeah. So try not to let your mind fall into that state. Part of the problem, I think, is having unrealistic expectations. Like thinking, oh, this should be easy. I should be able to do this. And I can't. There's something wrong with me. And so as we compare ourselves with others, we kind of look around the room and some people look so calm and peaceful. And we think, oh, they can do it, but not me. What's wrong with me? So be careful. That happens. Those kind of thoughts do come up in the mind, like self-critical, judgmental. So try not to let your mind get caught up in that way of thinking. It doesn't help, right? If you let your mind think that way and keep going in that direction, you might even end up thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to give up. I can't do it," and that's not helpful. Everybody can meditate, yeah, and we just have to learn how. We just have to learn how to deal with these problems that come up in our mind. And so it is really important to have confidence in yourself and feel good about yourself. I mean, just trying to do it, that itself is a great thing. Yeah. So pat yourself on the back for just trying to sit and keep your mind focused for even 5 minutes. Yeah, that's already something really good. Even if your mind doesn't want to stay focused, it keeps running away. But just trying to do it, that itself is meditation. You are meditating. You can do it. So try not to get discouraged about it. Do any of you have a question you'd like to ask? I should, instead of just continuing to talk, blah, blah, blah. We could.
For the people online.
Venerable, could you talk some about the correct way to deal with sensations, itchiness, aches and pains, things that develop during meditation, a feeling of wanting to change your posture or
Yeah,
like
okay, that's good. Yeah, that's one of the common things. So yes, while sitting there, we may have unpleasant or even painful sensations in our body. And I mean, it is important to try to find a comfortable position and also wear comfortable clothing. You know, if you're wearing really tight clothing, that can make it uncomfortable for you. So wear loose clothing and also find a position. You might need to try different positions until you find one that works for you, and maybe different chairs as well. If you're sitting on a hard metal chair, then hard wooden chair, then that's probably not going to help. So find a comfortable chair and a comfortable posture, way of sitting. So experiment, and hopefully you will find a way of sitting that isn't too uncomfortable. But even then, there will be discomforts, or like you say, itchiness, itches that come up. In the Tibetan tradition, my experience is the teachers they don't say you have to sit totally still and never move at all. I think in some traditions they do that. You might even get hit on your shoulders if you move. But what I've learned from my teachers is, no, it's okay to move, but not too much. If you're constantly moving, then that will disrupt your mind, make it harder to concentrate. So it is good to try to sit still as much as you can without moving. But if it's an itch and it's just driving you crazy and it's not going to go away, then it's okay to scratch it. Or if it's really painful, really uncomfortable, and you want to just move a little bit to find a more comfortable position, that's okay to do. If you're sitting in a group of people, it's good to be mindful of other people around you and try not to move in ways that would disrupt others. So do it quietly and also mindfully. Try to, be mindful of the fact that you are moving. And there's some advice I've heard from some teachers that I think is good. So I like to pass it on. Because in some traditions, you might be in a retreat and you're sitting for long periods of time, and it can get quite painful, quite uncomfortable. So the advice is the first time you feel the urge to move, change your position, don't do it. Don't move. Just keep sitting. And then if a second urge comes up, again, ignore it, because it's possible that the discomfort will go away by itself and you won't need to move if you just, try to be a little bit patient. But then if the third time an urge comes up to move, then move. So that way I think you learn some discipline. Instead of every time you feel like moving, you move. Then it's going to be difficult to really calm your mind down. So waiting until the third time that you feel that impulse to move, you learn to sit through some mild discomfort. But if it gets to the point where you really have to move, then you do it. So I think that's a good advice to follow, because it does affect our mind. I find that if we can't sit still, if we're constantly moving, it's harder to keep our mind still. Whereas if you can sit more still, not move so much, it's easier to have a more calm state of mind.
More focus. Yeah. Thank you, Vinod.
Any other questions? I'll just keep talking. I've got plenty to say, but I want to give you a chance to ask questions that you might have. So another common problem is disturbing emotions coming up while we're trying to sit there, sitting still and keeping our mind still and calm and quiet and focused on the breathing. But sometimes some anger might come up, or some restlessness, or thoughts, feelings, emotions that are disturbing, that are unpleasant, that are even negative. So there's a lot of information, a lot of material, a lot of methods in the Buddha's teachings for how to work with disturbing emotions. So if it's coming up when you're meditating, you can just ignore it, just try to put it aside and go back to your object of meditation. But that may not always work. Sometimes it's really strong and you just can't stop thinking. Like if during the day, maybe you had an argument with somebody at work or or while driving, something happened and you're feeling angry at that driver for what they did. So that's a common thing. Yeah, some incident that happened during our day, and we're still feeling upset about that, angry about that, and it comes up in our meditation, right? Have you ever had that happen? So then that makes it very difficult to have a good state of mind when meditating. So that's just one example of the mind being disturbed by some disturbing emotion. So there's different things you could do. One is to just say to yourself, okay, I need to deal with this. I need to work with this. But right now I want to continue my meditation on the breath. And then when I finish, then I will deal with that other problem and find a solution to it. So that's one thing you could try to do, but it may not work. That problem might just keep coming into your mind and doesn't leave you alone. So if that's the case, then you can just, put aside your meditation on the breath and focus on this problem, like the feeling of anger that you have. And because again, the whole purpose of meditation is to learn how to work on our mind so that we have less negative, disturbing things in our mind and more positive, constructive things in our mind. And so if we just sort of push aside problems and think, no, I can't think about that, I can't deal with that because I'm meditating. But why are you meditating? That's the purpose of meditation, is to work with the mind. I like to think of meditation, like this meditation on the breath, is kind of a window into our mind, a chance to look at our mind and get to know our mind better and what kind of things we have in there that we need to work on. And so it's completely fine to, if a painful, disturbing emotion comes up, to put our focus on that and work on that. And there's lots of tools in the Buddhist teachings for how to work with anger. There's whole books just about that, just about working with anger. So I can't talk about all of the methods now, but one thing that's really helpful is just to recognize how anger is painful, how it's, a disturbing state of mind. It's kind of harmful, poisonous to yourself and to others. Because what can happen when we feel angry is we may feel justified because somebody did something that's really wrong, really bad, and we feel justified in being angry. And if we feel justified about our anger, then we we want to just keep feeding it, letting it abide in our mind and not doing anything about it. And so it is really important to see that anger isn't good. It's not a helpful thing. It's actually harmful. In Buddhism, it's one of the main what are called afflictions or delusions that keep us stuck in a state of unenlightenment, a state of suffering, something we need to overcome and be free of in order to reach enlightenment and develop our full potential. So sometimes it's good to just kind of step back from the anger itself and recognize, oh, this is not a good state of mind. Try to see that for yourself, how it disturbs you. And there's evidence. I mean, there's like research I've heard on anger, how it's harmful for our health. It can lead to high blood pressure. It can lead to cancer. It can lead to an early death. So even from science research, there's material about the harmfulness of anger. And so to see that for oneself is very helpful, because then when it does come up, instead of wanting to feed it, get caught up in it, stay with it, you want to say, no, this is not helpful. I want to do something about this. Because one thing we need to understand is we do have a choice. We have a choice about what goes on in our mind. We can choose anger or patience or love, compassion. There are alternative ways of thinking and looking at situations and people other than anger, other than being angry. There are other choices. I like to think of when you come to in some countries they call it a roundabout, but here it's kind of a traffic circle, right? So you're driving along and you come to a traffic circle, and then there's these different roads that go off, right? So you can choose which road you want to go on. So yeah, a situation where we get angry is a bit like that. It's like a traffic circle. And, maybe our habit, what we're most familiar with, is the anger road, right? Going down the anger road. So it's very easy to go down that road because it's what we've done so many times before. But where does it lead? Does it lead to good results or more suffering and more problems? And so you see that, yeah, it's not a good road to follow. And recognize there are other roads that you can take that lead to better results. The patience road, the kindness road, the compassion road, the acceptance road. Yeah, so there are other roads that we can follow that lead to better results, better experiences. And so, yeah, if we can recognize that we have a choice, whether we go down the anger road or we go down another road. It takes time to learn this. It takes time to learn these other routes, get familiar with them, and learn how to follow them. It's not always so easy. But one fairly easy way that may not always work, but sometimes works, is to just turn away. Like if there's somebody doing something that you find really annoying, you don't like it, just don't pay attention. It's none of your business. It's probably not your business, right? And so just like, okay, if they're not like harming somebody, okay, if it's somebody harming an animal or harming a child, then yeah, maybe you do want to make it your business and step in and stop them and rescue that being that's being harmed. But if it's just something they're doing that's annoying and, pushes your buttons and you don't like it, well, so what? Is it your business to get involved in that and make judgments about them and get angry about them and complain about them? So if it's not your business, then just ignore it, right? So sometimes that can work. That's one method. Yeah, and this is actually something that the Buddha taught. The Buddha gave some advice about how to deal with emotions when they come up. And this is one of them. Instead of focusing on that, whatever it is that's making you annoyed, look at something positive. Yeah, think of something positive rather than that negative thing. Yeah, turn your mind to something positive. And so, and that's something we could also use with like a friend or a family member or a colleague, a neighbor that we know quite well. And there's something about them that we don't like and we feel irritated by. So instead of letting our mind get stuck on that, we can think about something positive about them. Focus on something good about the person instead of something annoying. They say, I don't know much about brain science, but they say that, like this wonderful book called Buddha's Brain, Rick Hanson's book, and he says that the way that our mind, or rather our brain, the way the brain works, is that it tends to pay more attention to negative things than positive things. And it's almost like they say, he uses the example of Velcro. When it comes to negative experiences, it's like Velcro. They just stick to our mind, and it's really hard to let go of them. When it comes to positive things, positive experiences, that's like Teflon. It just kind of slides off. So when I read that, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, now I understand. And when I talk about this with other people, they say, oh, yeah, I can recognize that in myself as well. But he says we can change that. Just because, this is our experience doesn't mean we have to keep following it. So we can change it. And one way is to just deliberately pay attention to positive things in your day. Look at beautiful things, beautiful experiences, and stay with those experiences even for 5 seconds. Don't let them just come and go, but just, stay with them. Let yourself soak in them, even for 5 seconds. That way your mind gets more familiar with positive experiences and has, more positive habits. Less the negative ones. So that's something we can learn to do. Just try to focus more on the positive rather than the negative. And I heard about one inmate in a prison who, without having learned Buddhism, but just on his own, he said that he kept himself happy in prison by thinking about the good things about the people around him, focusing on good things about them. And I thought, wow, if you can do that in prison, I mean, you got some of the worst people around you, violent criminals, people with a lot of anger, a lot of delusions, and even the guards, the people working and the staff can be quite difficult people. So if you can find good things in those people, then everybody should be able to find good things in the people around them. But I thought that's a really beautiful thing. Yeah. It's something you could adopt and learn and get familiar with. And the more you do that, then that will decrease this habit of finding fault and finding things to criticize, things to be annoyed at, about, and so on and so forth. So then gradually, your mind gets happier, finds more positive things and less negative things. So that's just one method. I mean, there's lots of different ways that anger can come up, and sometimes it is kind of justified. Like if you're being mistreated over and over and over again by someone who's behaving very harmfully towards you or towards others you care about. So then that's not something you can just ignore. But, find ways to deal with that person, deal with that situation without hating them, without, having anger and hatred and wanting to hurt them. Because that kind of thought, that kind of state of mind is really not nice. It's really ugly. It's really painful. And it is possible. It is possible to deal with even harmful, negative people who cause a lot of suffering, deal with them with kindness and compassion. But kindness and compassion doesn't mean just letting them do what they want. Yeah. Because that's not compassionate. And if someone is doing harmful things and you just let them keep doing harmful things, they're creating a lot of bad karma, and also probably getting themselves deeper into trouble in this lifetime. So it's not compassionate to anybody to just let people do harmful things. But so find a way, whatever way is possible, non-violent as much as possible, a way of stopping them from doing those harmful things, and but with the heart of compassion and kindness rather than hatred. So that's the ideal, but not always easy to enact, to carry out. Yeah, so working with the mind, working with disturbing emotion, this is a big job, and it's a lifetime job. It's not something we can do in a couple of days, a couple of years, and then we're finished. But yeah, could easily spend our life doing that. Any questions about what I just... Yes.
Yes, I was wondering if you have someone in your life who you really care about and they're angry a lot, how can you respond to them in such a way that it holds compassion for them, but also kind of protects you from absorbing some of that anger?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think you'd have to be quite strong yourself and quite together to not be affected by someone else's anger. Yeah. So if you're not at that point, then I think you do need to find ways of protecting yourself from their anger, and not spending so much time with them if that's possible. Just keeping some distance from them and finding ways to protect your mind even when you are with them, like not taking it personally, whatever, they're doing, whatever they're saying. Try not to see it as your fault or you're to blame. That's something that can happen. It's their thing. It's their problem, their anger. And if it's too much for you, yeah, just get space, step away, and find some way of keeping your energy positive.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to share about that? Maybe something you've experienced? I live in a monastic community where people are meditating a lot and working on themselves, and there's not much anger. It's some, yeah. Sometimes people can get angry, but not much. So it's kind of a very peaceful situation. I don't have to deal too much with angry people. But I do. I've had some experiences of that in my life. And yeah, one of my brothers, once we were on the phone and he was just speaking in a very, very angry way. And I was trying to reason with him, but finally I just said, no, I can't continue this conversation. I mean, he wasn't listening anyway to what I was saying. It just didn't seem to be any point in continuing to have this conversation. So I said, okay, goodbye. Turn off the phone. Because, yeah, I remember once meeting a woman who was married to a man who was very, very angry and always blaming others. Anything that went wrong was always other people's fault. He was unable to look at himself and recognize things that he was doing to contribute to the problems that he had. And so there's a lot of anger and blame, and she'd been married for 30 years to this guy, living with this guy, and she was feeling like it was harming her. Yeah, it was getting to the point where it was affecting her. She took a break for a while. She separated for a while, and just living away from him, she felt so much better. Yeah, her health really improved. And he wanted her to come back. But she said, no, I can't do this. It's not helpful. Because he just wasn't able to look at himself and acknowledge things that he needed to change in himself. It was always other people that needed to change. So it just didn't seem useful for her to maintain, stay in that relationship. So, yeah, it can be harmful to our own physical and mental well-being to stay with someone like that who's so angry. And if you might think, oh, if I stay with him, I can help him, But if the person isn't able to do that, if they're not willing to take responsibility for their own anger and their own problems, then it's, yeah, you can pray for them. Pray that they will change. But it is important to take care of ourselves and our physical and mental well-being. Anyone else? Well, I thought we could do another meditation on loving kindness. This is a really beautiful state of mind. It's something we all have. Everybody has a certain amount of kindness, but it's probably limited. We don't always feel it, and we may not feel it for everybody. So it has limitations on our loving kindness. And so it's a big part of Buddhism and other religions as well, to cultivate, to increase the feelings of love and kindness for others and be able to feel them for more and more people and beings. And this is also part of the ideal motivation to have for doing meditation. So it's something, if we can learn to be more familiar with loving kindness and then have that as a kind of motivation, our motivation for practicing meditation, and then try to bring that into other aspects of our life as well. Yeah, so that our way of seeing others, relating to others, acting towards others is imbued with kindness as much as we can. And this is also the main antidote to anger. It's the opposite state of mind to anger is kindness. Not always easy, but the more we can be familiar with it, familiarize our mind with it, the more easy it just comes naturally, becomes a natural part of our being. So let's do this meditation. This will be a guided meditation. I'll be talking and asking you to contemplate certain points. So just try to stay focused, concentrated, and follow the instructions. So again, make yourselves comfortable with your back straight, shoulders relaxed, eyes left slightly open, because if we close our eyes, then we might fall asleep, especially this time of the night after a busy day. So we do want to stay awake. So keeping your eyes open just a little bit so some light comes in, that can help. Have your mouth and jaw relaxed. Touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth behind the upper teeth. Have your head tilted downwards just a little. And for the first few minutes, do the meditation on the breathing we did earlier. Be aware of your breath coming in and going out to settle your mind down in case there's other thoughts distracting you, disturbing you. Okay, so now go inside your mind, inside your heart, and see if you can recognize your wish for happiness. So Tibetan lamas always say all sentient beings want to be happy and don't want to suffer. So that state of mind, that attitude is something we all have. And it motivates everything we do, everything we decide to do, all our actions, all our decisions are motivated by the wish to be happy and to not suffer. So see if you can recognize that in yourself. And you might think that there's something wrong with this feeling. You might think, oh, it's selfish to want happiness for myself. It's wrong to feel that way. So don't think that. Don't believe that. According to Buddhism, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy and wanting to be free of suffering. We have the right to be happy, and we shouldn't have to suffer. So see if you can accept that attitude in yourself without judging it or thinking it's wrong. It's just a natural, kind of instinctive state of mind. And we should be happy and shouldn't have to suffer. It's just a question of learning how to do it, learning the right ways to be happy and avoid suffering. And that is by working on our mind, learning how to have more of the positive states of mind, like kindness and compassion and patience, and learning how to have less of the negative, disturbing states of mind, like anger, greed, selfishness, and so on. And so this wish for happiness and no suffering is in the minds of everyone, every living being. And this is part of the cultivation of loving kindness and compassion, recognizing that everyone wants to be happy and nobody wants to suffer, and respecting that and supporting that in whatever way we can. So bring to mind someone you know and care about. Could be a family member or a friend or a child if you're a parent. Someone you find easy to love. And imagine that person in front of you. And then think, this person is just like me. They want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. And then wish them happiness. So you can say to yourself some words like, may you be happy. May you be healthy. May you have whatever you need, whatever you wish for in order to be happy and healthy. So you can use those phrases or whatever other words and phrases you're comfortable with. But just, speak words expressing your love for this person, your care, your wish for them to be happy. You could also imagine giving them things, giving them gifts, or doing things for them, like helping them, that would enable them to be more happy. So imagine doing those things and imagine this person looking happy, being happy. So now let's do the same with another person. This time, someone you're not so close to. It could be someone at work, or a neighbor, or someone working in the supermarket or bank where you go. So you're sort of familiar with that person, but not very close. So think of someone like that. Imagine them in front of you. And then think that they're just like you and just like the other person you thought about. In their mind and their heart, they want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. Then take that a step further and wish them to be happy. So you can use the same words, the same phrases you used before. So repeat those to yourself, focusing on that person, really wishing them to be happy and have what they need to be happy and healthy. And you can imagine giving them things that will make them happy or doing things that will make them happy. And imagine them being happy, looking happy. So now let's try this with someone who's more difficult to like. You don't need to think of your worst enemy, someone you really hate, but think of someone you just find kind of annoying, irritating, difficult to like them. And imagine that person in front of you and looking at them. Contemplate that they want to be happy just like you and just like the other people you thought of. They want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. And if this person does things that you find annoying or irritating, those things are probably just attempts to be happy. Maybe this person's mind is confused and they don't really understand how to be happy. And the things they're doing might be causing problems to themselves and others, but that's just because of confusion. But basically, they're just trying to find happiness and avoid suffering. So then see if you can go to the next step and wish them to be happy. Say those words, those phrases. May you be happy. May you be free of suffering and problems and so on. Even if you don't feel 100% sincere about those words, try to at least say them to yourself. And you may also want to imagine giving them things, doing things for them that will help them be happy. And imagine them looking happy, being happy. So now open your heart wide. Expand your love, your compassion, so that you can feel it for all people and all beings. That may be hard to do, but try to at least say words to yourself like, how wonderful it would be if all people, all living beings, could be happy and free from suffering. May they have whatever they need to be happy and free of suffering. May they always experience peace and well-being. So there's different ways to meditate on loving kindness, but that's one way. I hope that was helpful for you. Okay, we've got a little bit of time left if anyone has a question you'd like to ask. It's really good if you can meditate every day, if you can have a daily practice. How many of you are able to do that? Do some meditation every day? Yeah, yeah. the Dalai Lama talks about how, we do things for our physical, what's it called? Physical hygiene. Yeah, like we brush our teeth, we wash our bodies, we eat healthy food. And so we do things every day to take care of our body. We should also do things every day to take care of our mind. Mental hygiene. Mental hygiene is very important. Yeah. So even just 5 minutes, Lama Yeshe used to say that. He said, even if we just do 5 minutes of meditation, you should be able to find time for 5 minutes. I mean, we find time to read the newspapers. We find time to, scroll through our devices, internet, and so on. So we should be able to find 5 minutes to do meditation. It's a discipline. Discipline is hard, I think. But if you make it part of your routine, part of your daily activities, try to do it at the same time every day, same place, just make it part of your schedule, then I think you'll find it helpful, both for your body and your mind. So I really encourage you to do that. I've done a lot of research on meditation and found that, it shows up in the research. I haven't studied all of that, but your brain changes, your physical situation changes. But we just have to do it. Do you have a question? Okay, please.
Okay. Like to ask for your recommendation for how to set the mental attitude for the world that we live in now with the war, and it seems like it's quite, at least I feel it's hard to keep the mind positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to confess, I kind of avoid the news. Over the winter, we have a 3-month retreat in Shrivasti Abbey, and we're advised, to not look at the news and even email and so on, and just focus on our practice. And so even our retreat is finished, but I still, I just find it better not to keep up with the news. I don't know if that's ideal. I mean, it is good to know what is going on, but you need to be able to do it with a mind that doesn't get depressed or fall into despair and angry and so on, to be able to keep your mind positive. So one way is to focus on positive things. Okay, there's awful things going on. Some people are doing terrible things, causing suffering for others and so on. But there's also a lot of good that's going on. Just think of all the people who are doing good things, like Doctors Without Borders and all these organizations, aid organizations, so many people working so hard to help those who are in need, who are suffering, who are hungry, who are affected by war, and so on and so forth. And so, the news, it mostly just talks about the negative things. It doesn't talk about the good things that are going on. And so you get a really slanted view of what's going on in the world. And so we need to balance that by thinking of all the good things that people are doing, and not just people like Doctors Without Borders and so on, but just mothers and fathers taking care of their children. Yeah. And then adult children taking care of their mothers and fathers when they're in their old age. So I think I like to think the majority of people in the world are not doing awful things, are not doing harmful things. Most people are being kind to other people, to their family members, to their neighbors, and so on. There's so many acts of kindness that happen every single day. I think more acts of kindness than acts of unkindness and violence. I think that. I don't know if there's any statistics on that, but I really think that most people are behaving themselves and doing good. And so remember those things, appreciate those things, rejoice in those things. And balance that with the negative things that are done. And then, like last Saturday, I didn't go to any of the protests, but I heard, millions of people went out. And each time they have these protests, more and more people are joining. And so that shows there's a lot of unhappiness with what's happening in the government, what the government is doing. People aren't just sitting and being apathetic and letting it happen. They're doing a lot. They're working really hard to bring about positive changes. So, yeah, just try not to fall into despair, because that doesn't do any good. But do what you can. Yeah, do what you can to support the other way of thinking, other way of being, other way of doing things. And I mean, just meditating and practicing Dharma, that is doing something opposite to that. And dedicating our merit, making prayers and dedications that things will change for the better. And I also think that there's probably been no time in human history where there hasn't been awful things going on. Yeah, it's just human nature. It's samsara. We say in Buddhism, this is samsara. And as long as people and living beings are in samsara, that means they have afflictions in their mind. They have greed, hatred, ignorance, and all these other afflictions. And they just keep repeating because of ignorance, not knowing any better, and habit, just having this habit to keep acting in those ways that just bring more suffering. So this is the nature of samsara. So that's something, we could use the present circumstances, present situation to just get a deeper understanding of samsara, which Buddha taught how to get out, how to be free of samsara. But we have to have the wish to be free. I mean, I think that's part of the problem, is maybe this wishful thinking. Oh, the world, if only the world could be a wonderful place and everybody could behave themselves and do good and not harm. Having the wish to be in samsara and still everything goes well. That's not possible. Maybe for a while, but eventually, sooner or later, something will go wrong. That's just the nature of samsara. So the solution, according to Buddhism, is to free ourselves from samsara by working on our own mind, working on our own delusions. Because whatever we see out there, what other people are doing and the attitudes they have and so on, we have those in ourselves as well. Even if we're not acting in the same way, but we could. We have the potential. We have those delusions as well. And also in past lives, they say we've done everything. We've done all those negative things too. We've dropped bombs and killed people and tortured people. We've done all those awful things in our past. And so, we're not in a position to judge and point our fingers and say, oh, you're so bad and I'm so good. But yeah, this is just the nature of samsara. And so what we need to do is get ourselves out, free ourselves from samsara by transforming our mind, freeing ourselves from the causes of samsara. Ignorance, mainly ignorance. That's the main problem. Ignorance, and then the other delusions, the other afflictions that come from that. And if we can do that ourselves, we're in a position where we can help others do it as well. That's the whole idea of bodhicitta, becoming a Buddha, and helping all beings get out of samsara. So I don't know if that helps, but when I find myself getting into despair and anger and so on, I think of the Buddhas and how the Buddhas, I try to imagine how the Buddhas look at this world and everybody and everything that's going on. And I don't think they have anger. They're not angry. They're just compassionate. Like when parents see their kids fighting with each other, they love their children and they want their children to get along and not fight. So they want to step in and help them, but not with anger and hatred or despair, but just, okay, what can I do? How can I deal with these people, this situation? So trying to think of how the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas view us and the world and what's going on with infinite kindness, compassion, patience, but also looking for ways to help. I mean, they say the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are always coming into the world and doing what they can to help people. They may not advertise themselves, I'm a Buddha, I'm a Bodhisattva, but, quietly appearing in ordinary forms and trying to help. So, yeah, again, there are a lot of people who are trying to go against the violence, the war, the hatred, trying to find solutions to those kind of actions. So look for them. Focus on them. Remember that it's not all bad. It's not 100% bad. And even when bad things happen, they don't happen forever. World War II happened, and then it was over, and people got along for a while. Things were good for a while until they're not good. So it's like cycles. So this war will end. It's not going to go on forever. And the people doing these things, they're not going to live forever. So hopefully we'll learn from these mistakes and try to find peaceful coexistence. I don't know. That's just thoughts that I have. If that's helpful or not, but I think that would be a Buddhist perspective, a Buddhist view on the situation. Well, it's about time to end. So let's do a dedication of what we have done here tonight, coming together with a good motivation and spending this time meditating and discussing meditation. So we've created a lot of good energy, what we call merit, good karma. And this is the cause of happiness and spiritual growth, spiritual development. So let's mentally share this merit with everyone else, wishing that it will help all living beings become more wise and compassionate and loving and ethical, and develop all those excellent qualities, good qualities, and overcome the negative qualities like anger, greed, and selfishness. So just imagine sending this merit out to everyone else, to the world, to bring about more peace and happiness, and for everyone to get closer to enlightenment. Okay, so thank you for coming, and I hope this was helpful.
Thank you,
And do
Rainbow.
keep practicing. Good for you, and good for your family and your friends.